What are real estate investors doing today to cash flow properties? Again, folks, we have heard it for a long time. Affordability is stretched. There is no doubt. But there are people executing deals nearly every day in our communities. And I want to talk about what they are doing to cash flow deals today. We're going to have this conversation with Casey from Brick by Brick. How you doing, Casey?
I'm doing good, Michael. It's starting to feel like fall. It's nice out. We're going to be entering winter soon. Rates are still high. There's a lot of markets out there. It's kind of like a split market. We have some markets that are tanking, some markets that are just off the charts, exploding with, properties. Prices are still high and rates are still high. They haven't come down yet. They're still high. We're going to be entering the slow season. And if people have been, waiting for this rate drop, it's still pretty high. And, maybe people need to start thinking, okay, well, if rates aren't going to go down, I'm missing out. What can I do to cash flow with high interest rates? Because things are changing. It's not as easy to cash flow as it was a few years ago. What do you think?
Yeah, there's no question. I mean, I think there's lots of things that folks can do to cash flow today. I know there's people in my communities doing it all the time, but I'll go with you, ladies first. What's the first thing you're seeing out there for people that cash flow today?
Well, one thing, and this is something we haven't seen in a while, but my advice would be to target cold real estate markets. Target markets where, like I just said a second ago, some markets are tanking, some markets are through the roof. So let's target maybe sub-markets of major markets that maybe are a little colder. And, I'm always looking in Colorado and I look in Memphis too. And, in the heart of most major cities, it's usually always pretty active and busy and competitive. But if you just look out into the suburbs, just look a little bit further out and you check out realtor.com's hot and cold map, you can see easily with the color grading what areas are not selling for list price versus which ones are selling for list price. And you can go after properties in those colder markets where sellers are having a harder time getting offers accepted. This is the time where you can, instead of just running your numbers based on list price, run numbers based on what works for you, what you'll get to cash flow, and just, like at the strip club, offer. This is what I tell my students and they laugh every time. Make the offers, offer, right? Worst case, they say no.
Exactly.
Oh, well, okay. And don't get attached, right? Offer. Worst case, they say no. Best case, they say yes. Or you get a counter and there's something you can work with there. But I think that people have been so conditioned to offering asking price over the past 5 or 6 years that they forget, hey, I can offer below asking price at a purchase price that gets me to cash flow. And the seller might say yes now. So target colder markets, there's not as much activity and it's harder to get properties sold, longer days on the market. And you might actually have a chance of getting a property that cash flows that you wouldn't have gotten just a couple years ago.
Yeah, I think that's my number one kind of a version of that. Again, buyer's markets don't last very long. This is kind of my second buyer's market in 25 years. Again, figure out average days on market, say it's 30 days. I don't even look at anything less than 30 days. I might start writing offers at 45 days. My typical offer is 25% below list price, maybe even 30% below list price. And again, as you're saying, I'm not trying to get every deal. I'm trying to get one deal. So I'm going to be offer, just like you said at the strip club, looking for one person to follow up, to reply. And the other thing I'll say is I'm going to go back multiple times, right? I do not recall a time in 25 years where a seller accepted my first disrespectful offer. It might have been the third. It might have been the fourth, because motivation changes. Maybe it's not motivated at day 45. Maybe it's motivated at day 77 or 93 or 113. Just don't stop making the offers. The money is in the follow-up. And my best deals have come from follow-up. So again, the best way to get cash flow today is write offers that cash flow today. It's that simple. Right. And that's probably significantly below list price. So that's my first one as well. What do you got for number 2?
All right. So the next one I have is find a way to cash flow more. Look for that opportunity, that added value. So, God, I just had a student the other day. They were making an offer on a property and it was a 2-bedroom property with 2 bathrooms. And I'm like, do we all know this doesn't make sense here? You know, you don't normally typically find a standard 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom property that's older. Now the newer builds, yes, that's newer, a newer thing to find a 2-2. But in an older house in the 50s, you're not finding 2-2s. So I said, look, this listing agent is doing a disservice to their client by listing it and selling it at a 2-bedroom price per square foot. So where is the 1,200 square foot property? Where is this extra bedroom? Because there's going to be one. So look for the added value, right? Look for properties that are oversized, that maybe God, I bought a property like that a few years ago. It was a 2, 1.5, which is not common. And I go tour the property, and lo and behold, the seller had taken out one of the walls because she wanted, just a single lady, she lived there her whole life, and she wanted a formal dining room for her family. So we bought the house, put the wall and the door back up, instant extra equity and instant extra $200 more a month in rental income. So look for the opportunity of where you can add value. And a lot of times the easiest way, the cheapest way that gives you the most bang for your buck, in my opinion, is taking out that formal living room, taking out that formal dining room, putting up a wall and a door, $2,500, maybe the cost to do that. And now you've got an extra room. So, look for ways like that to make added value. Another one, I know I'm talking long now, but another one is pet rent. I am one that I don't like deposits. People want deposits back. So if you can put in a fenced yard, if you can make your property pet friendly, you can charge that extra, $20 to $50 a month for a pet. And that will definitely help increase your cash flow.
Oh, I love that. The next one I'll do, I'll take it from Thatch Nguyen, who I'm speaking at his event later this month, is if you're in expensive markets like Seattle or San Diego or other markets across the country that are now becoming ADU friendly, understand the rules. And, I have some students down in San Diego that are basically buying fixer-uppers on big lots and then building an ADU for like $350 a square foot. And then it appraises at $600 a square foot, $650 a square foot. So they're just scraping 20% equity by doing that. And again, that doesn't work in all markets, but maybe it works in yours. So again, look for ways that you say is to create value. And there's more and more markets that are seeing housing affordability become the number one issue. And one of the answers is putting ADUs on standard city lots. So that's coming. If it's not in a market near you yet, it's probably coming soon.
And on that, piggybacking on that, I will say, be careful, because not all markets want ADUs. So I've had people that live in California say, oh my God, look how cheap it is in Tennessee and Alabama and Louisiana, in the South where land is cheap. Oh my God, look at this big lot. I can put ADUs on it. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants that. You're going to devalue your property. Properties are so cheap. Nobody wants to share a yard or a driveway with somebody else. So know your market, and that's not going to work everywhere. So FYI on that, it's great for the high cost of living areas. So I got another one, and it's the new thing. 1 year used to be house hacking. 1 year it was short-term. So now it's co-living. Co-living is the new thing. So it's a good idea, right? We've got cost of living is still through the roof. It's expensive to live now. I mean, I really personally think that homeownership is going to be a thing of the past, and my kids are grown. I think that's going to be a past American dream. I do. If things are continue to go the way they're going, it's just going to be too expensive to buy homes. So people are looking for alternate ways to live in those desirable areas. So co-living, right? Renting out the rooms and charging a premium for those living spaces. One thing to keep in mind with that, though, is that some cities have put stipulations in place preventing people that are unrelated, too many people that are unrelated, from living together. I remember when I was in sorority at Cal State Fullerton, in California, we had an older sorority house, was getting remodeled, but the city of Fullerton had said that, hey, it's a brothel. They consider a brothel if there's more than, I forget, 6 people that aren't related living together. And I was like, what? That's so stupid. But that was my first, introduction to that being some sort of rule. And I do know that, again, I like Colorado, looking into Fort Collins and those areas, you can't have more than 3 people living together. So even in like a high cost of living area, right, where you think you can just go do co-living and put 6 unrelated people in a house together and charge a lot, be careful of your local rules, because you may not be able to do that based on local city regulations. But otherwise, co-living is a great idea. You can charge a premium for room. I have a student doing it right now up in Northern California, and he's going to be able to cash flow on, you know, a $600,000 property, which normally is not going to happen. But because he's renting out by the room, charging a premium, having some, you know, basic furnishings, he's able to make it work with today's high interest rates and high housing prices.
There you go. I love co-living. Again, it's something that will be talked about at our Vegas event. Actually, if you are in my school community, Sunday, 8 a.m., Jared, who does co-living, is going to be talking about co-living. So I'm glad that that's a topic, and we'll be hitting that this Sunday. The next one for me, we actually discussed before I went on my trip with another speaker, and that is infill development. You know, Brandon in my community does infill development in Texas, and essentially he could build for 80% of the value. So all said and done, lot plus construction, he can go back and get nearly all of his capital back and then have a brand new single family home or duplex or fourplex. He's done everything up to a fourplex. Again, doesn't work everywhere, and it's not for everyone. He has some construction experience in his past, but that's just you got to find what works for you and stop believing the masses that there's no way to create value. So co-living, infill development are just a couple ways to do it today.
All right. I love Brandon. I know. I got to call him back if he's watching this. I owe him a phone call.
There you go.
My bad friend. Okay. So another one I got is, and this one's, oldie but goodie, seller financing. So seller financing has been, it's like a lot of the gurus were about seller financing, all this. Well, it's not always a desirable thing. And you really kind of got to be in a tough spot as a seller to agree to something like that, usually. You got to make it a win-win situation. But like I said in the very beginning, in these cold markets where sellers' properties aren't moving and they've got this number in their head, they've got to get their house for this price, you may be able to find a win-win situation now in today's market, in the slower areas, even with higher rates, if the seller owns the property free and clear or close to it, you can get a bulk of that. The seller is the bank, and negotiate that purchase price, the interest rate, right? I mean, you can get 4.5% at a high yield savings account and 7% at a bank for an investor loan. So maybe you give the seller 5%, right? It's more than he can get, and it's less than you'll get. You have to pay. So seller financing could be a way to still cash flow, because I know what's the saying, date the rate, marry the house. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I will say rates do play a big part in cash flow. I mean, that's what happened to housing prices and why housing prices are so unaffordable, because people are just like, shoot, 3%, I'll pay whatever because my housing price is low. Well, that screwed the market. And so now, rates are important. And if you can get a lower rate with the seller, you can make it a win-win situation in a colder market where you might have a better chance to find properties with sellers that are willing to do that. Could be a good thing. So I would maybe say, look into the cold markets and try and find some seller financing deals.
Yeah, the last one I have for you, I'm actually doing right now, as is several of my students or followers in school. Lennar just came out. Lennar is the largest home builder in the country, largest or second largest. And they're now having investor specials because some of their communities aren't selling. So in the last 2 weeks, I have heard about students in my community get upwards of 20 to 25% off a Lennar home for buying cash. I have several folks, including myself, trying to do volume negotiations, trying to buy 2 or 3 at substantially below list price, call it 15 to 20%, plus get a 4.99 interest rate, plus refrigerators, washers and dryers for Labor Day specials. All these negotiations are going on right now. So what I would tell folks is even builders are dealing now. If you are in a cold community like Vegas, where I'm at, is very cold. So I'm going to look to take advantage of some builders and at least get one, if not buy multiple, and just get a crazy discount. And again, cash flow the day I buy it. That's
fantastic, Michael. I mean, I've got another one, but I think we should. Do we want to end on mine's not that great? Mine is, it is just boring and put more money down, refinance when rates go down. That's not the smartest investor move, I would say. But, if there's something you really want, if you're looking for a primary, right? And you're wanting to get a deal, or putting 30% down is not the end of the world.
Yeah.
It's not the
You
end
can
of the
always
world.
get it back later.
Right. Now, I would say if it's worth it, if you are in a quality market and in a quality area, because I would never, advise anyone, I would never put a lot of money down, more money down than typical on a property in a crappy neighborhood where I'm going to have tenants that are going to screw me over and create tons of damage. If you can get in even at a discount, but because the neighborhood's cold, or you found a good property that's below list price and you can get in within and you'll cash flow with 30%, whereas you would have never had a chance in hell a couple years ago, maybe that's your opportunity there. So, there's no cookie cutter, one size fits all. All these are really great ideas. Some are better than others. Some are more work than others. But the bottom line is there are tons of ways to cash flow in today's market with high interest rates. You just have to be a little bit more creative. Think outside the box, join Michael's school community so you can learn cool tricks like, the new builders from Lennar giving these huge discounts. So a lot of ways to do it out there. You just got to open your mind.
There you go. Casey, you're amazing. Check her out, Brick by Brick Wealth. You're amazing.
Thanks.